Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is 9:31 on a very cold January 23rd, 2025. This is the Board of Directors meeting of the Maryland Environmental Service. So we do have a forum, and we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to start with the Inspire Awards.
So I have the first one for Miss Christian Ramsey, and I am pleased to present the Inspire Award to Christian for showing her commitment and dedication in detecting an issue at a wastewater treatment plant. But first, I'd like to share a little bit about Christian's background. Christian has been with MES for almost 2.5 years and is currently an OIT 2 while she's working to become a fully licensed operator. Prior to working with MES, Christian worked as an automotive technician, and her mechanical aptitude has been an asset to the team. Christian is based out of the Dorsey wastewater treatment plant, and part of Christian's work is to travel to other local wastewater treatment plants to check on their operations. On Sunday, December 1st, Christian arrived at what we call the Tri-Folly wastewater treatment plant, which is a wastewater treatment plant that serves 2 schools in Howard County. When she arrived, she noticed several alarms, and she immediately called her supervisor and discussed several options for repair. After several checks, Christian noticed that there was still low pressure in the lines, and upon further investigation, she found that the oil-water separator had a crack in the glass bowl, which allowed pressure to leak out of the system and was the cause of the valves not operating. Christian then took it upon herself to develop a plan to go to Home Depot and purchase the parts necessary for the repair. She was able to install the parts needed for the repair during her normal shift without any outside assistance from our maintenance team and without causing overtime. And she was still able to complete her round to the other facilities. Christian's quick actions saved our client money and prevented a potential discharge permit violation. This is a great example of Christian's commitment to doing things the MES way, and her quick thinking and selfless acts as an inspiration to other operators who strive to keep all MES facilities operating and in compliance every day. Great job, Christian.
I would like to just add one thing. I looked at her background in the online, and one of the things she did, she spent 3 years at the NASCAR Institute to become a mechanic. She's certified in Dodge and Nissan, right? And I looked at that and I went, now I know why she did such a great job. But it's awesome to see that. And if we ever do sponsor a NASCAR, she said that she had a lot of education at the same time.
Thank you, very much.
If I hobble up here.
Yes, that chair is always in the way. It's your collar.
You ever want to join the maintenance team?
Not all first.
I'm just saying.
My loyalty lies with the
So I've got this one. The online system that Mr. Lipinski was referring to is most probably the Workday system, which is our go-to system for things related, all things related, finance, HR, procurement, among other things. And Mr. Shandier has been here for not yet a full year. February would make it a full year. But in the short time frame that he's been with us, he's provided us with tremendous support in actually keeping that Workday system running with enhancements. We did have a critical staffing shortage. We didn't have enough folks in IT to actually support that system, and he was managing it single-handedly, managing all the tickets that we received from across the organization while ensuring system operations and ensuring uninterrupted support and service. His proactive approach drove the successful implementation of the Workday chat agent. Typically, we would have to rely on outside contractors for something like that. He took it upon himself to do research, Google and Workday community and other places, and he actually made it happen for us, for our entire user community. That actually generated some cost savings for us. He is also committed to continuous improvement. He has completed multiple training courses within Workday. He's just taken upon himself to actually enhance his knowledge of the entire system. And because we had a staffing shortage, he took it upon himself, his own initiative, to go out there and identify and recruit some top Workday talent. We had an opening out there for months, and we were not able to find the right talent. And he actually used his personal LinkedIn account to reach out to candidates, and he found us some really good ones. And we are happy to report that we are pretty much fully staffed there. So his exceptional customer service and responsiveness have earned consistent praise from both colleagues and clients, reflecting his dedication to MES's mission of excellence. And as you can see from the picture on the screen, it's service with a smile.
We're shaking things up. Thank you very much to both of you, and thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure to meet you both. All right, next up, we have approval of the minutes from our December 19th, 2024 meeting. These have been distributed in advance, and I assume everybody has had an opportunity to read them. If there are any amendments or corrections, feel free to offer them.
None?
Hearing none, we can assume they are approved by consent. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Glass, Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next slide. $2.50 for me, $4.78 for Deputy Furketic when she attended Winter Mako, which I cannot make.
Winner.
I was in Tampa, so I think I won. They didn't win the tournament, but you know, it was nice and warm. Next slide. Mostly normal engagements, a lot of engagements in Annapolis, just receptions for Mako and MML in the last couple of weeks, and engagement with clients on all of our budget negotiations and budget status. We're just on a wait and see. We have our bill hearings coming up in February for both capital and operating, both the House and Senate. And everything seems to be in order from what we submitted. The governor's budget, there was a slight reduction in our capital funding moving forward in 26. Not as bad as other times Deputy has experienced. So we are chugging along, and we'll optimize and do the best we can moving forward. But onward to FY26 at some point, but wait for the session to be over. Next slide. So happy to report that the MDE's water supply program recently presented awards to surface water systems as part of the area-wide optimization program this year. And they presented one to the town of Myersville Wastewater Treatment Plant. MD's Chris Moser and Christy Jones attended the Myersville Town Council meeting a Tuesday night a couple weeks ago to present the award to MES's Ben Schenk, Tanner Bartles, Scott Murphy, and Bob Barnhart. Unfortunately, Chase Clark was not able to be there, but he was included in the award. The award was accepted by the town mayor and council, and they will have it framed and hung in the water plant as a testament to the successful collaboration between the town and MES. The area-wide optimization program provides technical assistance via tools and approaches designed to help drinking water systems meet water quality optimization goals and provide an increased and sustainable level of public health protection to their consumers. The program focuses on enhancing existing treatment and operations, which generally leads to improved operations at water systems. So congratulations to Bob Barnhart. Sorry, Bob Barnhart and his entire team. Well done. Yes. Next slide. We held our quarterly strategic advance January 10th, and we had a great presentation and free accommodations at Aberdeen Proving Ground. And Major General Jim Turinetti IV really generously shared his time with us for over a half an hour, more, almost 45 minutes, and gave us his interpretation of leadership and some principles. He shared with us his concepts of accountability and the statement that managers need intestinal fortitude, having a learning culture, communication, and the use of dashboards to provide real-time data over static information presented in PowerPoint. We thought his thoughts, he was very dynamic, very straightforward. What you'd expect for a 30-year career general. But it was really, it overlapped a lot of the things I try to present at our quarterly meetings and at our, when we have our all teams meetings. And it was very engaging, and he answered all our questions. So it was really, I was really thankful to him for taking so much time out of his schedule to address us and explain to us everything that happens at Aberdeen Proving Ground and everything he's learned in his 30 years. So really thankful to APG for allowing us to spend time there. And all the Howard County staff were happy that we all drove all the way up to them this time instead of down here. Perfect. Not Howard. My bad. Slip of the H's. We also had a couple of very engaging discussions, one on purchase orders for goods and services and how we can improve that process, and a detailed discussion on the accident review board and moving violations, which we also will follow up. So these quarterly meetings really bring 30 to 40 of the senior leaders of the organization together, and we really do have robust discussions that lead to improvements over time and follow up with all of those. And all of the KPIs are doing well, and we're expanding to other KPIs. So very, very good meeting. We also get feedback from the staff that attend and with suggestions to how to improve moving forward. So I felt like it was a very successful one, but I was tired from all that driving. I don't know. Next, and cold weather too. Anyway, EV problems for myself. So a bunch of the long-term projects have been, they are either completely, or they're at a stage where they're no longer in my hands, and I'll come back and monitor senior leaders. But you see all the ones that are crossed off. So OIT recruitment from VOTEC schools in the regions. That's a water wastewater project, but it's now going to be merged into the general program with HR. Not that the leaders in water wastewater aren't going to continue to be expected to reach out in their regions to local schools. The maintenance audit is complete and is with management hands for deliverables by the end of the fiscal year. We have a new recruitment specialist in HR that's now hired and active. We did submit a reentry program draft proposal to the governor's office and are waiting on any feedback they may have. And the KPI to make sure that we attain at least 30% minority serving institutions is in line and has the proper engagement with the KPI driver and the rest of the team. So I wrote a long list of new ones just yesterday that will be on. Oh, and I actually did receive the comprehensive services document. I just received it yesterday or the day before after I wrote my slides. But so a lot of these are But I have a whole new slew to talk to senior leaders about on Monday when we have our next meeting. And I thought I'd keep it nice and short this week in the spirit of legislative session. That's all I have to report. Any questions from any of the board members or comments or concerns? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Glass. We have the new business report. These are the accepted proposals. One page of these today, so feel free to take a look at them. And if you have any questions, please ask. I really like the one on the bottom. That is where I was raised and my parents still live. Little tiny town. Not often you see it on a slide of anything. Okay, financial report, Mr. Patel.
Good morning.
Morning.
You used to see a lot of colored bars on one page. I changed the format. So now, you have the summary labor in the first page with the color bars. As of fiscal year 2024 actual, which is the green bar, the billable labor was $20.8 million. Fiscal year 25 actual is 21,300,000. So it is higher. In the second page, I'll go into more detail. Fiscal year 25 budget was 22 million, 22.1 million, which is, as I explained earlier, and I'll go into the detail, was a little aggressively budgeted. So when we go to the second page, I'll give you the details on each one of them. Let's go to the second. So here is a new table there. Each group is represented by a row: water, wastewater, actual fiscal year 24, actual fiscal year 25, and budgeted fiscal year 25. So if we take the, after all actual 24-25 budget, the next column where we are showing the difference between fiscal year 25 actual versus fiscal year 24 actual. So the fiscal year 24 actual was 4.5 million, and for fiscal year 25 is 4.4 million. So the percentage represents the increase or decrease. So you can see that water wastewater has a decrease even as compared to fiscal year 24. But there are environmental dredging and environmental operations as much higher than fiscal year 24. Again, technical environmental services is a little less than fiscal year 24. When you go to the extreme right column, that's the actual fiscal year 25 versus budget. So since, as I mentioned, the budget was much higher at a 5%, you can see that the water wastewater is -7%, as compared to the budget. Same thing with a slight decrease environmental dredging and all that, because the budget is at 5%. However, since it was going into negative, not meeting the budget expectation, I went into detail, month by month billable labor. And what we are doing this projection budget, and in the future slides year end, we have 26 pay period. How much billable labor we have each pay period, and that's how we were allocating and projecting. Going month to month, we found out that the second half billable labor is much higher than the first half billable labor. So, maybe is the seasonal nature, is, some of the people who got promotions, raises, changing from operator in training to becoming an operator, by that time. So we found out that the second half of fiscal year is a little higher in billable labor than the first half. So going forward, we're going to project based on billable period by period, month by month, instead of taking as a whole year. So we have been growing in available labor tremendously last few years. We cannot keep up with that kind of growth. So just to compare, in fiscal year 2022, billable labor was 34 million. 2023, it was 38 million. We budgeted 42 million this year. So the good sign is that we will be growing over actual fiscal year 2024. Whether it becomes 3%, 4%, 5%, we still have to see, but we will grow. And that's a good news that, the billable labor will grow year over year. Of course, we are limited in marketing. We cannot, we have a target, but we cannot market to meet that target. So the bottom line is that we are growing over previous year, and we will not meet the budget, but we'll still be very close, which is a good growth sign, because we have been grown so tremendously in the last few years. We cannot keep it up at this year. All right, the next one. So this is the detail of actual fiscal year 24 versus fiscal year 23. And as you can see, the billable labor in the second row is almost 8,000 hours higher than the previous year. And if you look at the overhead expense, okay, that is also much higher. Now we are looking at, period in time as December for both fiscal years. So increase in net assets is last year was 5.1 million. This year is 3.2 million. Now, in the next slide, we have projections. We still have overhead vacancies and all that. And as I mentioned before, our billable labor is still increasing over last year. So overall, the projections for the fiscal year is still good. Next slide. So this is a full year budget, and then we have actual as of December 2024, which we use to project the full year estimate. And so we are not going to meet the full year budget, versus our expectations there. Will be about $1.5 million short. However, the overhead expenses, we had budgeted. So when we have this billable labor and, like we projected at 5%, same thing for all the overhead expenses and all other, we budgeted, say it would be 5% inflation. So the overhead expenses were budgeted at 17.6 million, but the way we are going now will be probably at 15.7 million. So that is a huge saving in overhead expense. So we have a cushion. Even if we don't get to the billable labor, we still have overhead savings. And overhead variance, we had budgeted 2.4 million. We're going to have 3.1 million because of the reduction in overhead expenses. Fringe, as I explained before, usually we don't count on it because it fluctuates, so fringe is not going to make much difference in budget versus actual. So the bottom line is the increase in net assets were budgeted as 5 million. And considering the reduction in overhead expense and all that, we're projecting that the year will end at net earnings of 5.8 million. So that is the presentation for the financial statements. The bottom line is we're going to try the increased billable labor. The historical trend is the second half has more billable labor, and overhead expenses are in control and less. So we will do better than our project is where it matters, the net earnings. Any questions?
I have a question. Have we established an existing level that we should be at? In other words, we got so many people, we got so much space, we got so many pieces of equipment we can use. That should be a ceiling where we don't go beyond without making an opportunity to bring in more of whatever is needed. Have we looked at that before?
We're in the middle of a 5-year plan, Dean
Okay.
Johnson. And, a prior iteration of the board put a 4% growth target per year. Suggested that we have a labor revenue growth of 4% per year in that strategic plan. So we aim that target at that level of growth. We were going into that 5 years from a low point, from a nadir. Is it nadir or nadir? Anyway, doesn't matter. So it was a low point, and we grew tremendously out of that low point, as Mr. Patel just described. And so, do we have a ceiling like you're describing? No, we're trying to do, well, we did 20% in 2.5 years, but we had a goal of doing 20% in 5 years. So now we find ourselves, we probably met a natural
Plateau.
top plateau.
Maximum.
What's the other? It's
Ceiling.
nadir, and
Ceiling.
there's another.
Apex.
Apex. Yes. Yes. So in the ecosystem that we exist in, yeah, we've got things where most of our groups can only grow, and I'll borrow this from Mr. Ford, organically. Because we are limited in statute from responding to RFPs, IGAs, et cetera, from potential clients. We have to be asked to submit a proposal, and can't just compete with the private sector. So, we're going to be coming up. We'll start the process of having another strategic plan, and I look forward to this version of the board's input on exactly how we project into the future. But no, we don't have a cap as a number for labor revenue.
Thank you.
Question, any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Patel.
I have a couple too.
Okay.
All right, so this is a resolution 25011R. A resolution authorizing the execution and filing by the Maryland Environmental Service of articles of cancellation related to KCMES Joint Venture LLC, a Maryland limited liability company, which the service owns 100% membership interest in the company, and providing generally the other matters in connection. So, partially acquire the property here, the land. Then partnership was formed in 2002 to construct this headquarters building and maintain the property, including the grounds and everything. And that was a KCMES joint venture. Until 2008, KCMES, the partner, which was a Morel company, managed the building, and they were partner in expenses. So in 2008, for a particular reason, we bought out KCMES and became just the 100% owner of the property and the building. However, we had a mortgage on KCMES, and I tried to pay off the mortgage, tried to negotiate with them every year, and I said, hey, the interest is high, The mortgage was signed that we had to pay the full interest no matter when we pay the mortgage off. So there was no benefit to paying off the mortgage. And so we let it ride until the mortgage is paid off on August 1, 2024. So now we already own 100% of KCMES. All we're gonna do is resolve the LLC, and then it will become just MES, like any other state agency or whatever we own. So this is asking for approval to dissolve KCMES. We are required to have a resident agent for 1 year on file, just in case if somebody comes up with the claims after that. So I'll be the resident agent for LLC after it's closed for 1 year, and then it's off. If any questions, we have lawyers here, so.
I'm not hearing any questions. Do we have a motion for approval of resolution 25-01-1R?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous approval. Thank you. Mr. Patel, resolution number 2.
Okay. This resolution 25012R is the resolution declaring the official intent of the Maryland Environmental Service to reimburse expenditures to be incurred with respect to the planning, engineering, design, construction, and financing of cells 1, 5, and associated infrastructure of the Midshore 2 Regional Landfill. So I think it was presented to the board, and you are very familiar with it, Ms. Allen, that we decided to expand the Midshore 2. So it is useful until 2042. In order to do the accommodate the incoming trash for until 2042, and don't. No. It's
Fine.
I was looking for a better word than trash, but it's
Solid waste.
solid waste, right? So 2042, we have to expand, and which is the cell 1 and 5. We have started expending money on that, the permits and all other already. And it is coming from Midshore 2 funds. However, we're gonna have the bond for 25,025,000 to reimburse MES for those expenses when the bond is issued and MES gets the funding. Plus, MES from the Midshore funds will always pay ahead and then get reimbursement from the bond. So this is the resolution is the request to approve us issuing the bond in the amount of 25,025,000 to finance expansion. Now, if you have any detailed questions on it, Tim Ford is here, but I think, this is the basic premises of it.
And I will be recusing myself from this vote. Are there any questions?
Excuse me. I'll add that the bond payment will be funded from the tipping fees. And we will, this 25 million is the expected expenditure right now, but depending on what the expenses come, there is some room to adjust the tipping fees, but I just want to inform the board that it will be self-funding from the tipping fee revenues.
Are there any questions? Looking for a motion for approval of resolution 25-01-2R.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. One more opportunity for any discussion or questions. Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I did not vote. Confirmation. Thank you very much, Mr. Patel. Always a pleasure. Ms. Jones, Human Resources Report.
Morning, thank you. So have a vacancy rate of 4.29% for 36 open positions, trending a little higher than last January. Next slide, please. We are So that's showing that we're trending just a little higher than last year. Next slide. And as stated earlier with Dr. Glass, we are working to time recruitment events. So for February, January, we attended 3 events. February, we have 11 scheduled. And next slide, that shows 10, but we added 1 more. And then for March, we currently have 11 scheduled, possibly adding 1 more to make 12. So we are making inroads to get out into the community and help with recruitment efforts. And that is all that I have at this time. Thank you.
Kent County.
We'll be going to that. That is where I graduated from high school, so just see that on the list.
We're pandering. You are the chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ms. Jones. And we now have Ms. Conrad and Ms. Joes to talk about an updated internal audit charter that I believe we are required to update.
Yes, yes. So this change to the internal audit charter is because of the new global standards for the IIA, which is the Institute of Internal Auditors. So they changed their standards and practice, and I had those highlighted. Major changes to the charter is they expanded on the purpose and mission of the to provide value and improve the organizational, looking at from a risk-based and looking more at advisory. So it was consulting, and they changed all the consulting words to advisory. Thank you. They also enhanced the standard adherence to update the IIA standards to include the new guidelines and framework. They strengthened the authority of the audit committee in governance and oversight. So basically, it's given the board more view on what we're doing and giving us more interaction with the board and the executive management. The next one, they changed it. The difference is a greater emphasis on the independence and objectivity, maintenance, and addressing potential conflict of interest. Like when I changed roles, having dual roles, I had to have a objective and independence plan, which is attached to the new charter to show that. It also gave a broader scope to include new areas such as IT audits, cybersecurity, environmental, social, and governance assessments. Because right now, a lot of cybersecurity with AI, it's growing a lot. The risk is getting higher. So they incorporate that into the guidelines. So another one is increased detail, responsibility for an internal auditor, including continuous improvement and adoption of new auditing technologies. Another one is they're demanding, the changes demanding quality assurance framework with continuous monitoring and more frequent external assessments, just like, and we've been doing that with all of our audits. We send out a survey to make sure that we're doing the right thing and being added value to MES. So yes, so today we would,
And looking for a motion to approve the new charter, the amendments to the charter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So will you require input from the board oversight? Because when you look at the listing of things are either or. So it may be that not all of these items now are only for the executive director. The question is, how will those be determined, or do we have data on them already?
So
Go ahead.
those would determine, because I do, as you guys know, that the audit committee, through the audit committee, that is, I've given the activities report and anything dealing with, even though it all comes to like dealing with budgets, even though you don't approve the budget for the internal audit function, but letting you guys know what the budget is and making sure that based on the risk, that we have enough tools to do what we need to do to mitigate risk. But it's all based on what comes into play basically. But if, for instance, if something happens and there's some type of, with the executive director, it gives internal audit function to go directly to the board.
Right, okay. Okay.
I do have a quick comment, Ms. Condra. This didn't come to the internal, the audit committee meeting that we had in October. Moving forward, I would like this to come to the audit committee as we make any changes to the charter, and then I would like the audit committee to bring it to the board. So we have two sets of, review happening. We knew this was happening. I know you told me in December, but moving forward, I'd like this to come to the internal audit committee first.
And due to the transitions, the different transitions in the internal audit, this would have been brought up before, but because of the changes that happened, that's why it was presenting that. But the normal way would have been presented in October, but due to I want to detail the transitions, this is why it was handled. And we had to and we have a compliance date of January 15 to have this implemented. So we couldn't wait until May to get this approved.
If a conflict like that happens again, Ms. Jost, we'll have an emergency meeting of the audit committee.
Thank you, Dr. Glass.
Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none. We could have a motion for approval. The updated internal audit charter. Honey is muted. Bueller, no. Is there a motion to move this forward?
Motion to move it forward.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Any other discussion or question? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the updated internal audit charter, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Oh, no.
Guys have it. Thank you, everyone. I do believe this is a record. I started on this, which is a number of years now. But we have one department item for Ms. Condra to present today.
Number one.
Yes. This is actually an amendment for the group environmental operations. The project is FY25 Brown Station Road Sanitary Landfill Groundwater Monitoring Services. This the contractor is SCS Engineers, aka Stearns Conrad and Schmidt Consulting Engineers Incorporated. And this amendment, this is the first amendment in the amount of $49,120. Increase in the contract amount to $203,335, excuse me. The MBE participation goal is 27.5. Their participation to date is 27.28.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any items for discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Carroll, the legal report.
This is, brief again today.
Oh, yeah, I caught the procurement notification.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to double back or do you want to?
You.
Okay, sorry, I skipped ahead. Condra threw me through a loop for having one. Notifications for review, and these are the contracts, purchase orders, amendments, and change orders between 25,000 and 200,000. There are 2 pages of the notifications. And if there are any questions, feel free to ask. Hearing none. Ms. Carroll, take it away.
Thank you. Good morning. As we have turned to a new year, 2025, it's your opportunity to file your ethics disclosures for 2024. The State Ethics Commission has opened the filing period. Disclosures are due on April 30th. So I'm happy to answer any questions along the way if anybody has any questions about filing their disclosures. We are continuing with our hiring process to try to fill the vacancy for our Assistant Attorney General. We are continuing to conduct interviews and hope to have that wrapped up and soon, and recommendation made to the Attorney General. And I just wanted to make a note on the Midshore 2 bond issuance. We're in the process of retaining private bond counsel to assist with that financing.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions?
Easy.
Quiet crowd today. Righty, group updates, and these are the managing directors, and we are going to start with the Freedom District blower replacement. Ms. Slatnick.
Thank you. So this is a little bit of a confusing one because it's about the Freedom District wastewater treatment plant, but it was a TES project because it was our maintenance staff that took care of this work. So just as a reminder, the maintenance staff are in TES, but they perform all of work at the water and water treatment plants operated and run by Water and Wastewater Group. Recently, there was a pretty big job of replacing the blowers at the Freedom wastewater treatment plant. The Freedom plant is east of Sykesville. Yeah, not too far from here. So, there was a task of replacing the blowers. The maintenance group took this on. There was 4 old blowers there, and they were being replaced with 2 new blowers. And what the blowers do, if there's any questions, I will direct you to Matt or Alan. But the blowers are part of the process of breaking down the organic material in the plant. It's fun. Okay, and so this is a picture of the old blower on the left-hand side. The first thing that needed to be done was that the first 3 needed to be disassembled. The reason they only did 3 is because they wanted to leave one of the old ones in line working to make sure that the new blower could handle what it was doing. So the first 3 were disassembled and removed. That's the old blower on the back. And then the next part was to add additional concrete pads because the new blowers were significantly bigger than what the old blowers were. So they took them apart, they prepped the new concrete pad. Next.
The computer is cold today.
Good, yeah, okay. And then they did, the MES staff did all the electrical. They had to do some refitting because the new blowers it wasn't, take something out, plug it back in. There was a little bit more work involved, so they had to retrofit some of the piping to get the new blowers to work. The new blower is the blue. Next picture. There we go. There's the great big new blower. So the first one was installed. They are running it. They finished the install. They're running it for 3 weeks to make sure it works. And then soon as the water wastewater operations staff say, yeah, this is working fine, they'll go in shortly and take out the last one and replace it with the second new one. Same process. And the MES staff will handle all of that again. Great project, great teamwork, cost savings to get it done this way through our group. And just a really good example of how the TES supports the water wastewater group. There's the new one. It looks prettier, it looks nicer. I don't know much about flowers, but cool.
It's all about the function, and the function's wonderful.
There you go.
It's a lot quieter.
Yeah, okay, there you go. I can understand that. I mean, it's blue now. But yeah, great work. And I heard great comments back from Matt about the team and their hard work and everything they've done, checking in on it, making sure it's going. And then they'll install the second one and take out that old fourth one.
Thank you.
Very likely it will have energy savings too, right? The technology.
Maybe. I don't know the answer to that. Do you?
This was the newest technology there was. One thing, we had removed three of those blowers. None of those 3 blowers that we removed were function. So this was a very critical project, and what was really nice about it was they kept us, they being the maintenance folks, kept us in tune with what was going on every step of the way. Because if we would have lost the last blower we had, it was a serious situation. So this was a project that Scott Kearney and his group kept us informed and kept it moving rather quickly. I'm waiting for the next. I think we're pretty close to the. We'll start moving to the next blower. So,
Yep, they got it on the schedule. Yep.
How old were the old blowers?
they go back to the original plan. And we only needed 2. And what happened was the last one failed. We ordered 2 new blowers with the O&M money grants that we got. So we got that money and we were able to bring them in and then get it replaced. We got it. I think we had it probably somewhere between 90 and 100 and some $1,000 to have these installed. And certainly the daylights out of that number.
Next, we're going to hear about food products depackager.
Exciting. So, in our mission statement, it says that MES will be a leader in environmental technologies. So paraphrase that quote. And this project is an example of that. Presenting today will be my division chief, Melissa Filiaggi, who is responsible for Prince George's County. Take it away. Come on.
Yeah.
Thanks, Emma. All right. Thank you, everybody. This is super exciting. This is really neat technology, and it's a major upgrade for our facility. So the Prince George's County Organics Composting Facility began in 2013 taking food scraps. We're the first in the state, the largest in the state still, and one of the largest on the East Coast. So we've grown from a small pilot project taking in a couple of food scraps in a mobile system to a large-scale permanent bunker system, which you see here. But we've been limited because we can only take compostable materials. Right? Contamination is a huge issue in all sorts of recycling, but especially in organics, because you're taking this material and you're putting it back out into the environment. So it's incredibly important that we keep it clean. But that limits our ability to bring material in because there's only so much feedstock you can bring in and keep it completely contaminant free. Next one. Until we got this technology. So this is a Tiger depackager. It is the only one of its kind in the state. It's common on the West Coast and it's becoming more common throughout different locations, but this is the first one in Maryland. It is exactly what it says. It depackages things. It takes packaged food. It has an auger system where it rips the packaging open, adds liquids, and separates the packaging from the actual food scraps. So you can go ahead to the next one. This has really opened up our ability to bring in various kinds of material. We can take material in virtually any kind of packaging with the exception of glass, right? Because obviously we don't want glass in our compost and that's hard to get out. But any other kind of packaging we can process through this particular kind of machinery. So you can see the picture on the top there. That could be a grocery store load, it could be a Walmart load, it could be we get material from Amazon. We get all kinds of materials that come in various packaging.
like expired products, maybe that they just want to clear the shelves of?
Yep, expired products, things, the slight temperature variation, material that isn't saleable for whatever reason, all of that kind of stuff. So no company has the ability to have someone stand there and hand sort all of that material. And we don't have the ability to hand sort all of that material. But with this machine, we can load it. It processes somewhere between 8 and 11 tons per hour. And you see what comes out on the bottom. It's not lovely when it comes out on the bottom, but it is contaminant free. So there's that. But it's really opened up our ability to divert material from restaurants and grocery stores and places where source separated organics just really isn't feasible. This machine allows us to handle that material and divert it from the waste stream. Go to the next one, Pam. See if that works. So this is supposed to be a video, but we've been, oh, there it goes. So this is what it looks like. You know, no matter what you put in, it kind of comes out looking like that.
Scared me, actually.
It's a little bit, and then you can see the packaging coming out the back end of that. So the packaging goes to the landfill, and then the kind of paste that's generated goes into our organics processing system, as every other. Huh?
Kind of works like a juice.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. So it's been really interesting. It's very, very effective. You can move to the next one. You know, our staff has enjoyed learning how to work it and learning how to get the most out of it. Our marketing team has spent some time they're building out a network of food scraps and food scrap diversion, with a focus on building Prince George's County, since obviously it's Prince George's County facility, trying to reach out and make contact with those businesses to help to divert from the landfill. You get it?
Now, does the water that's added, does that affect the rate of composting?
No, it hasn't made any significant impact in the operation. Our folks are still getting comfortable with it, but you know, they've got it down pretty well, pretty quickly. So overall, it's been a super successful so far. There's a graph on the next slide if we get there, but that's okay. So there are 30. Yeah, roughly 30% of all landfill trash, all disposal trash is food scraps. So this is really a big advantage in making significant strides in diversion. Sorry, Pam.
It just crashed the whole PowerPoint. You said it was like bunker style. How big is that object? That, you know, it's hard to tell.
Gore system.
Right.
The whole Gore system?
Like how big is that box?
It's significant.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't remember the exact dimensions, but
Yeah.
We'll wait till the spring.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Come and do it for it. But
We can drive it.
yeah, it's the entire backside of the composting facility. We can process 32,000 tons a year through that system. So it's pretty significant. Yep. So that basically just illustrates what we've been talking about, right? Our marketing team is doing a great job scheduling loads and making those contacts. You can see in the blue is our overall food scraps for each month, and then our packaged organics is rapidly becoming a more significant portion of that, and we expect that to continue to grow as we reach out and make more contacts and really start ramping up now that we're sure we know how this thing works.
Is the tipping fee more or less than the landfill?
The tipping fee is less than landfill, but more than source separated organics. So if individuals still bring us loads and we don't have to put it through the depackager, there's a cost savings for that. But if we do run it through the depackager, then
So less than Brown Station.
it's still less than Brown Station. Yep.
Excellent.
Particular facility, like other facilities, that are publicly run, trends towards cost neutral because of efforts like this, so it doesn't cost the county. So, it's real positive. And they divert money.
How are our neighboring states doing with this type of initiative?
Yes, so it's becoming more common. The closest active one of this particular type, the Tiger, is on Long Island. So our folks took a trip up there before we purchased it with the county. There are a couple of private companies that are building out more of these facilities in surrounding states. So it's definitely becoming as food scraps become kind of the big next diversion, right? Recycling's really, that's functional, that's aged, we've got the best we're gonna get out of that. Food scraps is the next big area of diversion. And these systems are gonna be required to really make a dent in any kind of significant diversion. So it's definitely becoming more of a topic of conversation and expanding.
This type of waste is taking up approximately 30% of all the landfills, then I see another extension to short too.
County off of that radar.
You're already way past my lifetime.
I'm past my working tenure for sure. We go next to Queen Anne's County after 2042 and then Penn County, so.
I'll be honored.
Well.
There you go.
Just real quick, I wanted to introduce Jen. She's going to be presenting on the Darlington Water Treatment Plant. Jen's our new division chief with, she's taking care of the north and central region. And that's both the operations and the engineering component and the biosolids for the entire Maryland Environmental Service. She's a graduate of Virginia Tech. She has a degree in civil and environmental engineering and also a degree in, I got to read this one, planning and management from a master's in environmental planning and management, John Hopkins. She's been
John.
Yeah, I told you I needed to read it. She's in PE and she's been with MES for 12 years now. So
It's
Jen, take it away.
pronounced Penn State.
Oh, it won't. No, that's a big thing. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. So this is a picture of the Darlington Water Treatment Plant. I wanted to provide some background. While we operate over 100 water treatment plants, this is the only one that we own. We have owned and operated this water treatment plant since 1998. If you're familiar with the Conowingo Dam going up on Route 1, the town of Darlington is right before the Conowingo Dam. There's a large Harley Davidson store. That's, if you've seen it, that's where Darlington is. We used to go this way to visit my grandmother, so I've passed by it many times. It serves approximately 250 residents. Fees are collected quarterly and managed by our finance team. And when we took it over, we went into the process of constructing a new water treatment plant, and that was completed in 2004. Part of our operations include measuring for pH, copper, lead. We also did a lead inventory to determine if there are any lead pipes. There were not any lead pipes. We started measuring and monitoring for PFAS in 2021. And just for some background, PFAS, in 2016, there was a health advisory issued by EPA. And a health advisory is not enforceable. It's just a technical guidance for federal, state, and local. And only this past year in April 2024 was a regulatory level issued. So while we monitored in 2021 and 2022, that was just for background information to see where we were at. And now since this level in 2024, we're going to have to put together a plan. As you can see, the limit in the last two bullets is 4 parts per trillion for PFAS and PFOS, and 10 parts per trillion for the other 3. So this shows where we are at in our most recent sample. So PFAS was exceeded the limit of 4, and PFAS almost exceeded the limit of 4. And just for background, the 4 with the asterisk on the right-hand side, those have a limit of 10, but also there's a formula to determine if it's greater than 1 hazard index, then it would also be flagged, but you can see it's less than 1 for the hazard index. So what does this mean? We'll need to collect 1 additional sample in about 6 months or so. So we're planning to do that in like June or July. You can go to the next one. So the EPA regulation requires that by 2027, we have to complete the initial monitoring. So that first sample that we did in December, and then the next one we're doing in June will count as our initial monitoring. We'll have to provide the public with information on the level of PFAS, and we've already started doing that in their consumer confidence reports. And by 2029, we will have to have solutions implemented to treat the PFAS. Can you go to the next one? So upgrades could include reverse osmosis or granular activated carbon. We've already been talking to a firm on our AE shortlist about upgrading the design for this water treatment plant. So we have a proposal from them and we're working through that option. But again, sorry, Pam, if you can go to the next one. The upgrades would need to be completed in 2029. So we've got time to work through this. We've already secured a $400,000 loan from MDE for the upgrade. We were looking into if this would be potentially a forgivable loan, but it's a non-forgivable loan. So we're looking into more options, including a grant that we're applying for at the end of this month. So hopefully we can get additional funding to support this. And so we're making progress towards it. I think that was all my slides.
Yeah.
Okay.
If MES owns this, I assume this is an enterprise fund? Oh, no, you didn't. You're writing.
It's just like MES asset. So entire MES is like an enterprise fund because we are not a state agency. So we function. So it's just no different than MES owning the building and all that. The only thing is with Darlington and all that, we are having lifetime liabilities versus, this kind of an asset. So, but it was, we've got the grant, but always it's a very risky business going into this small, water wastewater treatment plant and own. Operating is good, we are experts, but owning them, you don't know what's going to come up in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
That's what I was thinking. There's almost 50 residents, that not a big base to spread the costs.
Well, it's only the residents, but the billing meters are only 93. It's a challenge, and I think it's going to be a challenge for all small towns.
Oh, yeah. I think it could be a challenge. Well, analysis, unquestionably, going to be expensive. Very. Is Tunga?
The W is like a V. It's Vijay Tunga.
Okay, like German.
Yes, my husband is from Sri Lanka.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, next up, environmental dredging.
Thank you. This presentation will highlight the evolution of the island projects that provide dredge material capacity for the channels serving the Port of Baltimore. And MES works on all these projects. We're supporting our client, the Maryland Port Administration. So you've probably seen all three of these projects in more detail in other presentations, but this just kind of highlights how they've changed over years. Hart Miller Island's the first island dredge material containment facility for Maryland. It was permitted in the early 70s, but there was no robust outreach or stakeholder engagement. And because of that, we've learned that delayed the project significantly. It couldn't start until 1981 construction. So we've learned our lesson, and outreach and stakeholder engagement is a big part of the planning process for projects. The project was selected because it was going to provide economical dredge material placement for the channel serving the port that needed to be improved. They needed to be deepened so they could accommodate the larger ocean-going vessels in order for the port to be competitive. The dikes were comprised of sand fill with geotextile and stone armoring, you can see in that photo. And then as the dikes were constructed, they connected park. Permits for this facility required development recreational uses. And at the time, there was no plans for habitat development for wildlife. Nature would take care of that.
as dredge material was placed in Hart Miller, active mud flats and pools were developed and created a great habitat for wildlife, including making Hart Miller a very important part of our stopover for the Eastern Flyway. But when dredge material placement ceased in 1990, there was aggressive dredge material management, crust management, and to consolidate the self-development. So it got dewatered. And as a result, we lost a lot of mud flats and pools, and there was not as much habitat for the wildlife. And because of input from community and stakeholders, it was decided to develop the South Cell into a wildlife habitat. So that happened in 2005, created a wildlife habitat with upland grasses, shrubs, mud flats, pools, and including a permanent pond that surrounds a nesting island in the middle. They're kind of in the middle. It's for lease terms. So, so this became part of the state park. And once North Cell is developed, which is North Cell still in the planning process, that will be part of the state park. So changes in environmental policy since construction of Hart Miller, there was a focus on dredge material beneficial uses and innovative uses. So Poplar Island was the next large scale island placement site, and it was ahead of the trend, and it learned from the experiences of Hart Miller. So we had a lot of outreach, stakeholder engagement, helped move the project along smoothly. They established bus project goals through the Poplar Island Working Group, which was comprised of federal, state, local agencies, environmental groups, and even educational institutions. And the original perimeter dike was completed in 2001. And the construction was very similar to Hart Miller, you can see, with the armored stone, but this project was more than just a capacity project. This was an island habitat restoration, and it beneficially used dredge material to recreate the 1847 footprint of the island. So the plan for the island, as you can see, is 50% upland shown in the green cells, the darker green, and 50% wetland shown in the lighter green cells. The wetland cells themselves were divided into even smaller cells so that they could be managed easily and filled and developed into wetland restoration areas more quickly. And it was kind of the sequential process along the filling of the whole project. So they learned lessons as they completed each of the cells. And to date, 370 acres of wetlands have been restored on Poplar Island.
All the terrapins come from the wetlands. They come from all over the island.
Probably the wetlands.
That's where I've seen them released, but I've never seen.
And lay their eggs. So anyway. That's awkward. Sorry. You see the bottom right hand photo, that's a picture of the 5 CD opening to the bay, which after looking at, we determined that we could probably incorporate more natural solutions instead of like a discharge pipe or culvert. They created a more natural opening. So that's our start of looking at nature-based solutions. And when I say our, it's like the state and the working group and our client, the Maryland Port Administration and the Corps of Engineers. Next slide. So the Mid-Bay Island Ecosystem Restoration Project, this was the largest of all the island projects because it will include the restoration of 2 islands in Dorchester County. So pictured left is the Barren Island project, which is the smaller one. And this one is all wet. It's going to be approximately 83 acres. It'll only provide 500,000 cubic yards of capacity. But it's got a lot of good environmental aspects to it. And you can see the phase 1 construction of the sills and the breakwaters around where the restored habitat will be. And the sills are a little less aggressive than the sand armored dikes that you see. They're smaller in statute and more natural looking. On the right are remnants from James Island. That was taken in 2019, and now 2025, probably most of that remnants isn't above mean high water. So, and as such, resiliency has been a big focus of these projects. We're going to design the wetlands so that they'll be able to stand and have some resiliency against sea level rise. And in fact, the dikes, the wetland dikes in both projects will be, well, not Aaron, but mostly James, will be a foot higher than those at Pop, based on modeling. So this is James Island. On the right is the construction plan. So it's not the full design yet, but what we're doing here is incorporating some nature-based solution on the eastern side where there's less wave action. Sorry, I forgot to mention that James Island will restore 2,072 acres of habitat, 45% up, 55 wet, so a little more than Poplar. But the project team is investigating nature-based solutions that can be incorporated in the design in James Island. So it's still being investigated, but some of the options are softened shorelines, oyster reefs, and also sill with living shorelines as shown in the top photo. That's just an example. And then Tombolo features as shown in the bottom photo. That's a natural creation that happens in coastal areas, but obviously ours would be created. But it's to provide diverse habitat for marine and terrestrial species. Tombolo.
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 You got it going on today.
So it's described as a formation that's like an island, and it's connected to a landmass through a little sliver of a bridge lake. Anyway, although there are benefits to the stone dikes that armored heavily with our other projects, giving it, structural stability and resiliency, and just it's going to last a long time. And it also provides hard surface for oysters and structures for fish, but it's less effective attracting some fish, and it also might be a hindrance for some terrestrials to get on the island. So there's really a push to look into these nature-based solutions. That's what's going on right now, looking at that. And then here's Barren Island, the smaller two. On the left is the phased construction for the project. Phase 1 is complete. There's some phase 1 construction shown on the right, and we're just starting phase 2. So even though James holds a lot more capacity and helps support more, this one has a lot more environmental benefits. So it's a really good project. It will wind up protecting 138 acres of wildlife management area and a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Refuge. It'll reduce erosion to the neighboring shorelines, and it'll protect 1,300 SAB habitats, aquatic vegetation, and provide 8.5 acres of ground nesting areas for birds. So with each of these projects, we've learned a lot. We're going to continue to learn a lot. And we're creating a lot of benefits for the environment while still giving dredge material options.
On paper, how long will it take for James Island to finish?
I'll have to see. I have that number somewhere, but not. Oh, to finish construction?
Yeah, like capacity and everything. Like, when would we look at what point will we have to look for another island?
So it'll provide a roughly 95 million cubic yards of capacity. So if you drop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Poplar has how many more years?
It'll be around the early 2030s. And there's still a good bit left in Poplar, but because it's all scattered in a larger area, a lot of yeah.
Would you say the percentage change of natural design versus hardened traditional structural civil engineering design has taken place from Hart Miller to James and Barron? Like over your career, how much has changed percentage of natural systems?
Barron's all 100%.
100%, right? But Hart Miller was basically zero, and then everything was after the fact.
Right.
And then just nature took its course, right?
Yeah. And the thought is maybe there'll be hardened structures for today, but we'd like to evolve from that, and get more natural.
So you're not gonna ask the question.
Yeah.
Percent from zero to
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's a lot of evolution in a short, even career in this industry. New and old business, anyone, for the good of the board?
All right, I do believe that wraps it up for us today. Our next meeting is Thursday, February 27th, 2025, 9:30 a.m. And is there a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Sarah?
Unless you guys want to stay.
I'll second it. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead. Already. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us this morning, and we will see you back